DevOps is all about scaling out to meet the challenges of businesses that are maybe up against a big event or something that is nearing capacity. When that happens, it's time to make sure you're automated, and I think DevOps is the way to do that. And that's exactly what one of our customers did here today. We have a company called WePay. I'm going to play a little video for you about WePay, what they do, and who they are. And take a look.
WePay, this is Mika. May I have your email, please?
WePay is a payment company.
Yep, go ahead and click on that.
We service primarily platform businesses.
And we'll kind of troubleshoot from there.
Crowdfunding sites, marketplace businesses, and small business software.
Okay, so let's see if we can get you on the right path.
So the problem we solve for those customers is they're trying to charge a buyer, pay a seller.
He initiated the payment, he verified the bank account.
So our payment solution solves that particular type of problem.
Maybe Wells Fargo thought it was a fraudulent charge and they reversed it.
We do it in such a way that it protects the platform from the risk of loss due to fraud.
If you don't have any photos, you should probably...
And so there's hundreds and actually thousands of developers that have come and built on our platform. We're processing hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars per year and growing really fast. And that put a huge load on our servers. It was double the amount of fraud analysis, double the amount of transactions per second, and an increasing customer expectation of uptime, availability, and response time. So in the span of 3 months, we really had to scale out our infrastructure really, really quickly.
So while we were playing the video, I brought up a couple of gentlemen here today. We have Bill CLERICO, who's the CEO of WePay. We also have Prashanth Chandrasekhar, who is the general manager of our DevOps business at Rackspace. So welcome, guys. Take it away.
All right. Well, welcome again, Bill. Thank you for being here. It's great. We're talking about a topic that's absolutely central for us as we sort of think about the cloud era. So really excited to be here with you today. So DevOps as a concept, we've talked about a little bit. You heard Ben Gall talk about Docker a little bit, but the concept in general, we believe it's got really, really profound effects on how we truly exploit the cloud, right? We've talked about that. And at Rackspace, at least, we believe so deeply that we've been launching products every year. We've launched something like 18 products in 18 months using these very philosophies. And then now externally, since about December of 2013, we offer this for our customers, and we help them in this very, very unique way around DevOps automation service. So WePay, that's where you guys come in. You guys are one of our earliest customers, so thank you for that. We learned a ton from you guys, and now we're very much a mainstream way in which we support customers, kind of in this DevOps method. So again, thank you for that.
Thanks for everything that you guys do. I think the timing was fortuitous because right around December of 2013 was when we started to see some really kind of extreme growth, and it was a very kind of natural fit, and I think you guys really bailed us out, so we appreciate that.
Absolutely. Well, even before we get too religious about DevOps and what it actually means, and the topic around that, one thing we want to talk about, you guys, all great startups have great starting stories. So you guys have a great story which begins with the bachelor party. So why don't you start with that?
All
At
right.
least whatever you can tell us. So let's go there first.
All right, getting to it on a Monday morning.
Yes.
So WePay is about 6 years old. We turned 6 in August, and we originally started the company as a pair of 23-year-old co-founders trying to collect money for my co-founder's brother's bachelor party. And so we're trying to make it easy to kind of round up like 15 guys to collect money for houses and booze and all the rest of it. And I think we really struggled. There was not a good solution out there to make it easy for us to do that. And so WePay was founded with the idea that it should be easy for anyone to sign up and in a couple minutes kind of collect money from friends so that you can go on trips and kind of do cool things as a group. So that was the founding idea, and we started the company, incorporated in August 2008. We applied to a seed stage investor called Y Combinator, and we were funded by them. And so we moved from Boston out to San Jose when we received that money. Launched a product. We raised a Series A. We raised $7.5 million. And we're really excited about this idea and really excited about the product we were building. But the market wasn't so excited about it, and so we really realized that wow, there was a bunch of people that liked our service and used it, but they didn't want to pay for it, and apparently there's just not that many people going on bachelor parties all the time. That was news to us as 23-year-olds. And so what we found though was that we'd built this really valuable platform that we had built connections into the major card networks, into the banks and payment processors. We built an engine that we call Veda to underwrite risk of transactions, especially transactions between two individuals, as opposed to between an individual and a business. We had structured our flow of funds in a certain way to be compliant with a bunch of different regulations. So we'd solved all these really hard problems, but we hadn't really figured out a way to deliver those to the market in a way that the market valued. And so we kind of entered this phase of iteration where we tried a bunch of different things. We released some small business products, mobile app, an invoicing application, different tools for small businesses to use that we had built. We also opened up an API. And so we allowed other companies to come build on top of our platform to take advantage of those capabilities I just mentioned, the payment processing of, to charge a buyer, to pay a seller, to underwrite the risk of that transaction, to do it in a compliant way, and to do it quickly. And so what we realized was, without very much effort actually on that side, we started to see massive customer adoption. Our API went from 0% of our business to 25% of our business to 50% of our business, literally in the span of probably about 6 months. And so, despite our best efforts to make our consumer product work, we realized that actually the big opportunity for WePay was as an infrastructure platform. And so, about halfway through last year, we said, okay, it's time to kind of have this tough conversation. We're going to shut down our consumer and small business products and really go all in on this API strategy. And I say it was a hard choice, but it really was kind of made for us by the market, and we were kind of doing everything we could to keep up with the growth. And we had sort of stumbled into this opportunity that we call platform businesses, which is, if you look at e-commerce today, one of the most exciting segments of e-commerce is marketplace businesses, where you have a buyer and a seller trying to transact, and you have a marketplace sitting in the middle trying to facilitate that transaction. Turns out, in terms of the flow of funds, it's actually very similar to group payments. You have an individual paying another individual. You need to underwrite the risk and verify the identity of both parties. You need to move that money quickly and transparently. And so all those capabilities we built were just this perfect fit that we had kind of stumbled into. So we shut down our consumer products, our small business products. We went all on our API strategy. And it's been kind of a wild last 12 months. I think we've gone from we'll more than triple our payment volume year over year. From December of last year to March, we doubled our transactions per day. It's just been kind of a very sort of extreme journey as we've entered this new marketplace. And so obviously DevOps is a huge component of that. I think, I know we'll kind of unpack this more in a bit, but as a payment company, there's just some unique challenges, and to be able to scale that quickly, we were kind of caught a little bit flat-footed by that growth, and turned to Rackspace, and it's been just a phenomenal experience.
That's great. Well, congratulations. That's a phenomenal story in a very short period of time since 2008. And now you guys have something like 500 API partners. You guys process something like $1 billion in revenue every so often.
$1 billion in payment volume.
Payment volume, yes, sorry.
Revenue
You have
nice.
to have very
Someday.
specific about that. And also, you guys are obviously very heavily funded from a venture community perspective, so about $35 million. So congratulations on all that success.
Thanks.
So as you've talked about that, the kind of the thoughts that go into my mind are what it actually feels like within WePay, right? As
Sure.
you're experiencing, you're testing and iterating, like you just talked about. You pivoted pretty dramatically from one business model to another, going through that whole process, and you hit potentially, kind of a product market fit. I know you guys were heavy into the Occupy Wall Street movement that got you guys a lot of, transactions, et cetera. So all that unpredictable kind of volume and immediate kind of need to scale. So can you kind of talk about how it felt like internally at WePay through those scale bursts
Sure.
Across your teams?
Sure. Yeah, I think it's, I think it's challenging to take a company through a pivot, especially a pivot from a consumer company to a B2B company. I think it's just a dramatically different way of thinking and a dramatically different type of talent. It's a dramatically different type of culture as well. I think when we were building a consumer product, we'd do kind of fun marketing stunts. It was all about sort of press and publicity. I went on a reality TV show to get press. Like, it was a much different sort of approach to what we were building and how we were taking it to market. Things like reliability were, important, but not absolutely essential and critical. And I think, when you try to change the DNA and fabric of a company from a consumer company to a B2B enterprise company, especially one that sells payments, which is sort of the lifeblood of these marketplaces and crowdfunding platforms that we serve, you have to really dramatically change that. And there's never really like a point or a day where you stand up and say, hey guys, like we need to think about this company totally differently. It's this gradual shift. But taking the company through that and helping them understand that, and meanwhile doing it in a way where you have to scale really rapidly is definitely challenging. And I think the feelings at WePay during that time, and probably still to this day, on one hand, there's tremendous excitement about the market opportunity. It's really cool to like see billions of dollars moving through a platform that you've built. It's also kind of scary to look and realize that, hey, next month it could be a multiple of that. And I think the nature of marketplaces and crowdfunding platforms is they could just grow extremely fast. So it's not as if we need to sort of sign a lot of customers to grow really quickly. Our existing customers are all growing incredibly quickly, and we layer new ones on top of that, and it kind of creates this sort of interesting challenge for our infrastructure, and not just technical infrastructure, but support infrastructure, boarding infrastructure, all that. So I think it's a mixture of sort of nervous energy, maybe is a good way to put it, and excitement. And so I think it's been fun to kind of take the team through that.
Gotcha. And then talking about $1 billion of transactions and that kind of thing, obviously has some very unique kind of business needs from a standpoint of security and PCI. As you think about the cloud in general, we've talked about applicability about the cloud, the ability for us to really exploit it, to kind of to its ultimate state. How do you think about kind of your business needs with respect to kind of what the cloud actually offers?
Sure. Yeah. So I think as many people are probably familiar, there's a data security standard in the payments industry called PCI DSS. And so that really governs a lot of what we do. And it's really was originally built for merchants. And there's a special threshold when you cross 300,000 transactions in a year, and you're required to be a level 1 audited party. Being a payment company, we process that amount of transactions in a month. And so it's really, from a very early stage, we've had to comply with a really sort of intense data security spec. And so, historically, that meant that we couldn't use the cloud. When we started building our infrastructure in 2008, 2009, the cloud just wasn't an option. There's parts of the PCI DSS spec that require physical network separation, things that just don't make any sense in a cloud environment. And so when a lot of that legacy infrastructure that we built was just not built with the cloud in mind for that reason. We thought it was cool, we wanted to use it, but we just couldn't. The good news is that over the last, I'd say, 2 to 3 years, the PCI spec has really evolved. There's been different versions of that spec. There's been specific guidance around cloud environments, and it really has enabled us to use the cloud for the first time. I think that's really exciting. I think we're still moving probably a little bit slower than maybe a pure software company might, just because it takes time for hosting providers to catch up to the spec, for QSAs, who are the auditors of PCI, to catch up to that spec. So we're really kind of in a hybrid environment now where we split our infrastructure between dedicated hardware and the cloud. Although our intention is to move as much towards the cloud as possible, for all the benefits that the cloud brings.
That's great. Yep. So you're talking about this kind of massive explosion of volume. You've talked about all this, immediate need for scaling, right? Mm-hmm. So as you talk about DevOps, how does that, as a notion, and as philosophy, why is that important to WePay? How do you guys think about it internally? Love your color on that.
Yeah, I think DevOps is it's a broad term, and it means a lot of things to a lot of different people. I think to us, there's certain. I try to think about things through a customer lens. Why is DevOps not only important to us but important to our customers? And so I think when you look at it through that lens, it means a couple of things. I think it certainly means security. I think our customers trust us with incredibly sensitive data of both theirs and their customers. It's personal information like credit card numbers, billing addresses, social security numbers, really sort of sensitive information, so that we make sure that we can store that in a secure environment is, I think, a critical component of how we think about DevOps. I think the second is reliability. So the ability to be up all the time. I think if we're running the payment system for a marketplace, if we're down, that marketplace is down. And it's not just that, maybe they lose a couple dollars in sales. They're down for all their customers. All those sellers on that marketplace can't get paid. And so it has an incredibly magnified effect, our system reliability. And so I think thinking about DevOps through that lens is important for our customers. I think kind of the last leg of that, I think, would be speed. We're in a competitive market. Payments is a very, very kind of hot space. There's lots of great companies out there that are in payments. And so our ability to deliver new product features to our customers very, very quickly, to be flexible, to adapt, to enter new geographies, all really critical to our success and to our customers' success. And so I think of DevOps as a kind of key enabler on that front as well. So. And I guess maybe the last, I'll add a fourth leg to the stool, which isn't really as customer focused, but I think is super important, especially with the sort of talent market being what it is today in the Bay Area. We're based in Palo Alto. We're just right down the street from Facebook and Yahoo and eBay and Google. And we compete with those guys and with many other venture-backed companies within probably a 30 square mile area for some of the best talent in the world. And what I've found over the last year in particular is that a really critical piece of recruiting great engineering talent is your technical infrastructure. I think guys and girls the best guys and girls don't want to come work on some antiquated infrastructure that's slow moving and takes forever to test and deploy code and isn't reliable. I think the best engineers want to work on the most cutting edge technologies. And so, I know our team gets really excited about technologies like Docker. And when I'm recruiting people, that's a critical part of that conversation. The best engineers have a lot of questions like that too. So I'd say DevOps is also, I think, really important from just an internal developer, engineer satisfaction and attraction perspective as well.
Gotcha, yeah. And when you think about the maturity level, right, different companies have different levels of maturity when you think about adopting DevOps principles and that in a cultural kind of component internally. How would you guys rate yourselves? How are you set up internally, firstly, to kind of enable that, fast-moving, agile product development cycle? And also, how do you partner with us, on a day-to-day basis? How do you see that?
Sure. So I think we're still pretty early on the DevOps adoption curve that I want us to be on. I think I look forward to a day where we're absolutely best in class. I don't think that's true today. I think we, as an early stage company, you make trade-offs about what you're going to prioritize. And for us, it was all about product iteration and sort of speed of experimentation at the application layer. And when you're small, then you can afford to not necessarily have the full DevOps infrastructure with all the bells and whistles because you have really smart engineers that can kind of tinker with servers and just kind of make it work. And if something breaks, the pager goes off and someone fixes it, and that's okay. I think when you're at an early stage, just over the last call it 6 to 12 months, with the growth we've seen. I think that's, it's become incredibly clear to me that DevOps is just a key enabler of that growth, and it's a necessary strategic imperative for us. I think there's all the things I mentioned before about the benefits around agility and reliability and security, but it's also in terms of just like team scalability. We've gone from, we've hired, I think, 20 people in the last 60 days, probably about half of those in engineering and product, and it may not sound like a lot of people to a Rackspace, but we're only a 63-person company today, and so that represents like 50%. 50% of our company, a third of our company is brand new, started in the last 2 months. And you think about onboarding that many engineers, getting them productive, making sure they're not breaking the production environment, and that they're shipping high quality stuff. DevOps is absolutely an essential part of that, of doing that. We wouldn't be able to do that if we were doing things the old way. And I think there's a lot more we could do to be even better. So, I think I'll give us I'd say we're a promising athletic adolescent in terms of our DevOps life cycle. We're not quite exactly where we want to be. I think to the second part of your question about how we work with Rackspace, in December we were sort of seeing all this growth. We needed to quickly scale our infrastructure. We didn't have any internal DevOps resources. We had a couple of our more senior engineers were just doing this kind of a part-time job. So we signed up for the Rackspace DevOps service, to really give us a lot of that kind of horsepower to do stuff. There's a lot of, there's the fun part of DevOps is like when you're on the whiteboard and you're talking about all these cool technologies you're going to use, but then it kind of, when the metal hits the rack, so to speak, or the container hits the virtual machine,
nice.
That's where it really starts to kind of come down to it. And that's where, it's been nice to have the DevOps team at Rackspace working alongside us because, we've leveraged these guys to write chef scripts, to do a lot of the kind of heavy lifting around this infrastructure. And a lot of that is kind of, it kind of comes in peaks and valleys. There's certain times, we shifted data centers and there was a whole bunch of work within a week or two. And having that kind of an elastic resource to allow us to work through that was huge. But at our size, we don't need a 5-person DevOps team right now. But we can kind of utilize the resources at Rackspace to kind of fill in the peaks and valleys. We've since hired an internal director of DevOps, but he works really closely with the Rackspace folks. And he kind of quarterbacks a lot of the efforts, but it's great to have this resource we can lean on that just gives us a lot of firepower to get a lot of stuff done quickly.
Yeah, absolutely. I think some of the engineers that actually worked on your infrastructure are actually in the room, like Ryan, Richard down in the corner there. So for us, you're absolutely right. You mentioned earlier on when you talked about the fact that there's so much. It's a pretty broad term. DevOps is a pretty broad term, and you talked about the elements of that value chain, right? So we very much think about it that way, where automation is absolutely key, where we treat your infrastructure like code. So hopefully there's value, and like you're mentioning, there's so much other stuff that we're continuing to add around things like monitoring, very deep level monitoring with StatsD and Graphite and New Relic and all these other monitoring tools that have become de facto now. And then other elements like CI and CD, right? Kind of that's the ultimate, to be able to get to a release management kind of framework where you're very, very comfortable. That's something that's a very, very real problem that we're trying to solve as part of our roadmap. So there's more to come on that.
Sure, we're really excited about that. I think our release process, we're not quite at the point where we're fully automated and have a true continuous deployment. We're much closer than we used to be. And I was standing in the back waiting to come on, and I saw we had just pushed to production, and we'd probably do that about once a day. I think I would love to get to a point where we're pushing tens of times a day, and we can really have that infrastructure to be able to do that. So very excited about that.
Yeah, so earlier on in the breakfast panel, we had one with James Staten. He talked about this kind of uncomfortable, I don't know the exact term that he used, uncomfortable handshake between a company and a provider like Rackspace, right? Where you've got a managed services provider like us delivering this very specific DevOps expertise at scale. How do you think about kind of your comfort with trusting somebody like Rackspace to say, you know what, I'll let them manage all my infrastructure automation needs. I will focus on writing code, right? How do you get really comfortable with that notion in something that's so critical to your success?
So I think, one of the reason we chose to work with Rackspace was just the reputation around support and around that sort of two-way relationship, because I think it is a really difficult thing to trust an outside party. And our previous experience with our previous hosting provider, we didn't have that support, and it was a disaster. We had serious infrastructure issues. We couldn't get the help we needed, and so I think making sure that you have that really great relationship, I think, is a kind of key foundation. I think kind of the next level of that, though, is you really have to understand what you're getting yourself into, and I think you have to have that understanding internally. I used the analogy at the panel we were talking on earlier that the cloud and I guess DevOps is. It's kind of like a piece of heavy machinery. Like, it's really, really powerful if it's used the right way, and it's really, really dangerous if you don't use it the right way or you don't understand what you're doing. And so I think having expertise and understanding internally about what you want to do and how you want to do it, and then having kind of clear roles and responsibilities between, hey, this is what we're going to do, and this is what we're going to rely on a partner, and making sure there's just absolute clarity there. I think that's a critical part of the formula to making it work. And I think if you have that trusting relationship, you have those clear roles and responsibilities, you have that kind of vision for how you want it to work, then I think it can work phenomenally well, and I think it has for us. I think when some of that stuff starts to break down, that's when it can be a challenge.
Gotcha. And when you talk about Rackspace and the partnership, do you feel like there are certain elements of how we've actually added a lot of value for you guys with respect to how you thought about that overall problem? Like, what's like the biggest value add from your standpoint?
Yeah. So when we first had reached out to Rackspace and started to talk to them, we had set this kind of internal goal of we wanted to migrate our entire infrastructure from our old data center to a new data center within about 45 days, and to do that without downtime, and and at the same time kind of modernize the infrastructure and move away from developers logging into production machines and making configuration changes to kind of an automated, consistent deployment. And I think there's a lot of moving pieces on that, and I think that's probably the kind of most immediate area where Rackspace was able to add value. Is we were kind of able to work with a SWAT team on the Rackspace side to be able to give us the bandwidth and firepower we needed to do that. I think if we had to write all those scripts and do all that automation ourselves, we wouldn't have been able to hit that timeline. And that timeline was critically important for stability and uptime for our customers. And so that was I think it was a stressful month and a half for our team, but I think that's a way where having that kind of elastic capability was just incredibly valuable and added a ton of value for us.
Right. No, our team was super pumped to help you guys out in that time. Kind of final question around kind of advice to other startups similar to yourselves, right? On how do they adopt DevOps principles and philosophies internally? Any thoughts on how they can get on that curve so that they can continue to mature?
Yeah, I think if I were doing it over again, I would have started earlier. I think we very much we're focused on product, and then the scale came, and then we had to sort of go back and kind of catch things up. And so I think it's helpful to kind of sit down and think a little bit ahead of not necessarily implement everything from day one, but say, hey, what does the roadmap look like, for DevOps and the infrastructure, so you can kind of plan accordingly and not be saddled later with these legacy decisions that take a while to kind of unwind. I would say it's difficult. I think it's difficult to kind of read a blog and figure out how to build a best-in-class infrastructure. I think it really, and there's no major in DevOps. Someone said that earlier. I thought that was funny. I think you really have to have that talent and that expertise and that wisdom internally. And so I highly recommend recruiting for that expertise, or working with a partner that can bring that expertise as well to help bear on it. Because I think as a developer myself, it's always tempting to think you can just kind of look on Stack Overflow and figure things out. But what we found is that making it all work is actually, there's a lot of other people have learned the hard way, and there's ways to learn from them too.
Excellent. Well, again, thank you for being a customer of Rackspace DevOps Automation Service, and for being one of our earliest customers. So we've actually now become very much a mainstream way in which we service companies that come to Rackspace. So thank you again. I think we've got a couple minutes left. So if there are any questions from the audience to anybody, we can take them. Yep. I think there's a mic there.
Product question.
Sure.
When are you guys going to be accepted overseas?
When are we going to be accepted overseas? Is that the question? Oh. Is the question when will we be accepted overseas?
That's right.
Okay. Yep. It's a great question. Our number one product initiative right now is international expansion, and so we've been testing in a number of geographies privately, and we're really excited to get that out the door publicly. But just being a payment service, I'm a big believer in test with a number of customers that you have close relationships with, make it really work and work through the kind of kinks, and then deploy it. So hopefully more to come later this year. Can't say exactly right now, but it's a huge priority for us.
Any other questions? All right. Well, perfect. Thank you again, Bill.
Thanks
so
much. Yeah.
Yep.